Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining on this session of Deborah Rise Movement Life Connect. These sessions are planned specially with the youth in mind. The Youth Express sessions aim to give young people an open and clean forum to share, discuss, brainstorm issues, and express themselves on issues that affect them the most. These sessions are conducted with the hope to connect young people with mentors, counselors, and other people who can help them take up these issues on the right way forward. Today, because of the pandemic, a lot has changed. We are all faced with a new category of uncertainties and challenges, and it appears that the youth are with the trend of work from home and online classes. It is becoming increasingly tedious to manage time and to order our daily routine. So today we have just the right topic for people who are facing such challenges. We have among us our esteemed guest speaker, who is popularly known as Dan Ram. Dan Ram is a speaker, entrepreneur, prolific speaker, and startup coach. After his education from the Yale University and Trinity College, he has clients that extend right from international people as well as people from our own country. Dan Ram travels all around the world. He works as an event MC speaker, and he does more than 100 events per year. Today, he will speak to us on the topic of how to manage time, which is time management. We welcome you, Mr. Dan Ram, and over to you.
All right. Thank you so much for that introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to spend some time with all of you. I have to apologize because we are on Zoom and eventually on YouTube. I can't see your faces, so I don't know if you're aunties, uncles, tatas, and achis. And the reason I'm saying that is we are going to make this interactive. So I'm just going to read the name that I see popping up in the chat section. So apologies if I don't give the usual courtesies of Mr. or Mrs. Sir or ma'am, any of that, because I actually don't know necessarily what you look like. But you're all very welcome. Thank you so much. This will be interactive. And the reason for that is even though we're in a pandemic and even though you're looking at me on a screen, we are still humans trying to live the best lives that we can. And I want to connect with you on a human level, not on a professional watching me on YouTube level. And so please right now on Zoom, find the chat section, because the only thing that I have here on my screen is your comments. I have a little interest in looking at my cell phone screen. I want to hear from you. So I plan to speak, but I plan to make this interactive. I'm going to throw out a couple verses. I'm hoping that you will help me find those verses and pop in the chat section, because I just wrote the verse numbers. I didn't write the rest of the words because we're a team right now. We're going to work together on this. And also throughout, I'm going to be asking some questions. So please, please, please find the chat section. Can we do a quick check if all our systems are working? All you have to do is on the bottom of the Zoom, you will see a menu bar. Right? And you've got the mute and the video. By now, many of you figured that out. You also know the chat. So on the very bottom, you'll see something that says chat. And please click that, pop it up, and tell me, type in there what you had for breakfast this morning. So everyone, please type in the chat section what you ate for breakfast this morning. So Studio Monitor says oats. So keep typing it in. I want to see. Vera says shake. Angel Menon says dosa. Usha says no breakfast. Andy says oats and eggs. Chris says idli. Upma. Christina says bread, jam, and sausage. Yummy. Can I come to your house, Christina? Because that sounds good. Sophia says dosa and peanut chutney. I have not heard that combination before. That maybe is worth trying out. Who said just tea? George Paul says just tea. Iris Paul says ruggy porridge. Roti and scrambled eggs for Jen. Agnita says egg dosa and tea. Jesse John says Italy, and it disappeared. This is great. All right, all our systems are working, which is great because I do want to make this interactive. I'm only going to make one more apology, and then I'm going to jump right into this topic of time management. My apology is when I get excited, I talk really fast. And even though I am Indian, I may not sound Indian. So I'm going to try to talk a bit slower, but I hope that my enthusiasm for the topic and sometimes my repetition of what I'm saying will help. I'm aware that my accent may sound different, and I'm aware that I talk really, really, really fast when I get excited. So I'm going to try to slow down. That's the last apology I want to make. And now let's talk about this topic. We're going to rewind about 15 years ago. And this is what happened 15 years ago. I was on a walk with my classmates. We were 16 years of age, and we were walking through the African bush. My dad is a diplomat. He's now retired. So our whole family was living in a beautiful country called Zimbabwe. And we're on a class trip, on a school field trip, and we're walking through the bush. In the daytime, we were sailing on these magnificent boats. So just try to picture in your eyes, in your mind, your Discovery Channel, Animal Planet vision of beautiful Africa, right? It's teeming with wildlife, beautiful blue skies, amazing trees. We're on the water, on a beautiful boat. All my classmates and I, we stop for lunch, and then we have our lunch, and then half of the class stays to clean all the boats, and then 8 of us go for a walk. Now, the question is, do 8 people return? And the reason I ask that question is because I had an experience in my life that I'll never forget. Maybe a unique experience I'm about to share with you guys. We were walking through the bush when suddenly I stared death in the face. Death in the face. Its eyes were locked into mine. Its veins and its muscles were poised, ready for an attack. Its teeth drooling with anticipation. I was 16 years old when I stared a wild lion in the face. The apex predator, the king of the jungle, the strongest, most terrifying, most fearless creature of the African forest. And at 16 years of age, besides a big ego and a lot of willpower, there isn't much else that would have saved us. All 16, 2 adults in the group, were staring down a wild lion. So, here are some things I knew. I knew there were trees, but you cannot outclimb a lion. It is a cat after all, and big cats and small cats are very good at climbing trees. There were water bodies, lakes and rivers. After all, we had come on a boat. But I knew that a lion can outswim a human being. There was land. I obviously could run, but lions are faster than humans. And even though I work out a lot, and even though I train a lot, if it came to it, there is no way that I could fight a lion and win. Now, I realize the story is a bit ironic because my name is Daniel. That's where Dan Ram comes from. Dan Ram is short for Daniel Ramamurthy. Many of you will know in the Bible that Daniel also faced a lion. Also at the age of 16, faced a wild lion in the African bush. So the realization in that moment, having looked at all the options, trees, land, water, and a fight, there's only one conclusion. Time was no more an option. I was running out of time. Life was getting really, really short. I was staring at the beast that would take all our lives, one of our lives, who knows? Now, I don't know how many of you have had a near-death experience, but I highly recommend it. Not because of the nightmares, not because of how terrifying it is, but sometimes you need to have a near-death experience in order to have a near-life experience. Now, I was looking at some of the sessions before, and in these beautiful talks that are being organized, we've talked about purpose and passion, but so much of the theme is you get one shot at life. How do you live life to the fullest? And I think sometimes you miss out on the opportunity called life because we spend so much of our lives avoiding death, avoiding discomfort, avoiding fear, avoiding what makes us uncomfortable. When in fact, sometimes it is in that position when we are uncomfortable, when we face our fears, when we face the chance of losing our lives, that we realize how valuable life is, and it makes us run with the pace that we otherwise would not run in life. So I highly recommend it. If you've never had a near-death experience, I'm not suggesting that you put yourself in that situation, but I am suggesting that you look at it with a different lens, that it could actually be a change in your life. Now, for the rest of you, you don't have to face a lion. What you need to face is your Google Calendar, because today's topic is, what do you do when you come to the realization that life is short? Now, I realize we have a variety of different ages here, and the reason I picked a story from when I was 16 is because when I was 16, I didn't think I was going to die. Now, this year, I said goodbye to a dear friend who was 17 years old who died from cancer. She fought it bravely, and she won the first time around, and the second time around, unfortunately, she didn't make it. 17 years of age. That's how long she had at life. I almost passed away at 16 if I didn't survive that experience. Now, some of us are much older, and we're more aware that we don't have that much time. Now, the thing is, the Bible, the one thing that maybe unites a lot of us, or a book that you might have heard of, talks a lot about how life is short. So help me out, guys. Can someone please type in the chat section, what is James 4:14 saying? James 4:14. What does that verse say? And if someone else can find Proverbs 27:1, because maybe you're listening to me and saying, Dan, I knew you're saying life is short, but Elon Musk is working on making life go on forever. Or, I'm really healthy, Dan. I don't think time is short supply. So I want to say, if you don't take my word for it, take the Bible's word for it. What does James 4:14 say? All right, so Chris has put it in here. You can share this publicly. I see Chris has messaged me privately about this. So Sophia Mary says, you do not know what tomorrow brings. That is what Proverbs, which is a book full of incredible advice says, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what tomorrow brings, what the next day brings, depending on the translation. Now, Chris has shared what James 4:14 says, and essentially says, you do not know what tomorrow will bring. What is your life? Because you are but a mist that appears for a little time and then vanishes. Appears for a little time and then vanishes. We're like mist. So the reason this topic is important is because I firmly believe that your life is valuable. Your life is significant. Your life has purpose. But I also firmly can guarantee you that your life will end. Whether facing a lion, whether in a hospital bed, death is guaranteed. So the question is, what do you do between when you're born and when you die? And today I want to talk to you about 4 areas that I want you to switch on and think differently. 4 areas. 1, that you would have heard from others. 3, that maybe you haven't. Okay? So we're going to go through 4 areas of your life that I think we need to activate smarter time management. Now, maybe I'll share one more quick story because Dahlia did a wonderful job of introducing me. I host events. That's what I do. I get to interview amazing people, from presidents like the President of America, the President of Poland, Switzerland, to the investors and founders of billion-dollar companies, as we call them, unicorns, because of how rare they are, to aspiring entrepreneurs, to youth. I travel throughout India and around the world hosting events. And I get to sometimes interview them and ask them backstage as well as on stage, what makes you successful? How do you manage to do everything? How did you build these incredible companies or machines or technologies? And one conversation that got me started on this topic of these 4 areas I'm about to share you, this is not an original thought, right? These 4 areas, oops, that's 8. 4 areas are areas that I have learned through a process of interviewing those that are role models, those that have achieved significant things. And I go, how do you do everything? How are you a family person, a founder, an investor, a philanthropist, an artist, a good neighbor, a coach? Like, how do you do all these things? An author? And one conversation came from a manager of one of the most influential women in the entire world. There is a singer, dancer, artist called Beyonce in America. She is the daughter of a Christian family, and she is very, very influential for writing some of the most iconic music of our times. She is in the status, she and her husband are in the status of the few Black billionaires that exist in the world. So not only is she a great artist, she's financially successful, she's married to one person, and she's remained married to this person. She's got children, so somehow she's a mother, she's a singer, she's an artist, she's a businesswoman. She's got so many things going on, and she's part of a movement. And I was talking to her manager, and I was asking a little bit tongue-in-cheek, I was like, what's the most valuable asset you have? What is the most valuable asset you have of all the things? So he not only manages Beyonce, he manages many artists like Lady Gaga and a bunch of these famous artists out there. He also manages athletes, basketball players, football players. He also has multiple businesses. So I was just curious, what's the most valuable asset you have? Now, I'm not going to ask you to guess because it is the topic of today's conversation. He just looked at me and said, Dan, friendships, they come and they go. Opportunities, they come and they go. If you think about businesses, business ideas, they come and go. Cycles and cycles and cycles. They keep coming and they keep going throughout your life. The only thing that goes and never comes back is time. Therefore, time is my most valuable asset. And that was the day I committed to Google Calendar. And that's the day that I've been able to turn my life around to similarly, in my own small ways, achieve things that an ordinary person like myself should not be able to achieve. Now, this is not to take away from the absolute favor of God. This is not to take away from the certain grace of God. This is not to take away from the community whose shoulders I stand on. I know there are people in this group that know me from the time I was a little child. I know there are people in this group that actively support me in the work that I do. I do not take credit for achieving any of this stuff by myself, but I do have some practices that help me sustain the opportunities that God gives me, that helps me activate the levels that my community pushed me to. Otherwise, I'd have fallen a long time ago. And one of those is time management. So I feel like I have worked very hard to convince you that this is important. So if you don't mind, now we're going to jump right into how do we do it. I hope I've whet your appetite enough for this conversation. So let's talk about the 4 areas that we need to consider. How do we get to that next level of intentionality, productivity, and focus? So level 1 is, and this is the common one, the other 3 are the ones that most people don't talk about, but I'm going to talk to you about. The first thing is the morning routine. Invariably, everyone that I've interviewed, without exception, every founder, every investor, every president, every achiever has a morning routine. For some of them, it's 20 minutes. For some of them, it's 3 hours. For some of them, they do it only on the weekdays. For some of them, they do it every single day of the year without breaks. The morning routine, because how you start is often what affects your mindset and your attitude and your perspective for the rest of the day. So let me ask all of you, let's go to our comment section. What is the first thing you do? And do not lie. So, what is the first thing you do? Assuming the alarm goes off and you switch off the alarm. You don't have to say that part. But what is the first thing you do? As soon as you wake up, what goes through your mind? Is it someone that you talk to? Is it a device that you look at? Is it a quick bathroom break? What is the first thing that you do? So Joseph Paul says, pray. Iris Paul says, pray to Jesus as soon as I get up. I'm alive after 11 cardiac attacks. That's amazing. Subi John says, pray. Uday says, prayer. Shri Guru says, pray. John says, I pray to God and thank for this wonderful day. George Paul says, thank God. Lydia says, visit my garden. Yes. Well done. Absolutely. Get some nature time. That is so good. Lydia, visit my garden. Sophia says, read Bible with parents. Nice. Well done. Vinitha gets coffee. That's good. I'm a coffee fan as well. Paul says, prayer. Jen says, I say, thank you and praise you, Lord. I don't know with that much enthusiasm, but that's how I heard it. When I saw it, I was like, that's how I saw it. Coffee and read Bible, grace and rum. Excellent. So I talk a lot about the morning routine because, as I just said, I think how you start your day is how you continue your day. If you fill yourself up with energy in the morning, you have energy to give. If you fill yourself with love in the morning, you have love to give. If you fill yourself with peace of mind in the morning, you have peace to give. If you fill yourself with generosity in the morning, you have generosity to give, because you cannot give what you don't possess, right? I mean, that's pretty obvious. You cannot give what you do not own. And it is your responsibility to fill the vessel that God has given you. Because every morning, it does say, right? New mercies, new blessings every morning. But you still have to do something about it. So you have to activate it. Now, may I suggest a few areas for you to consider? Because I think we are spiritual beings, but we also are other kind of beings. And I want to look at a few different areas that we need to activate, that we need to fuel up and fill up in the morning in order to have a very productive, positive, loving, peaceful day. All right. So the first one we have talked about, I think you guys have nailed this one. Spiritual. Vertical number 1 of the morning routine. What can you do spiritually? So you mentioned read your Bible. You mentioned pray. I also think that music is so good. I listen to gospel music in the morning because it just gives me that really full, the words of music and the beat of music just touches me in a way that, I'm just being honest, I believe in honesty, that reading does not. I'm just telling you. I love reading for the deep insights, but the music hits my heart in a very different way. I think the reading hits my brain, right? And I think you got to activate all of it. So I would add some music. I love the person who said walking outside in the garden, because I think appreciating God's creation all around you, we're very fortunate to have peacocks around, and they're beautiful, and they're free, and they're wild. And there's something so marvelous about the fact that they visit our space. And so I firmly believe that time in nature and God's creation are all ways to fuel yourself spiritually. Now, some of you may be even more creative. Maybe you like to write things that God is telling you. Maybe you like to write poetry. Maybe you like to sing things to God. Maybe there's certain thought processes that you go through in the morning. I've heard of these things called spiritual affirmations. You know, the Bible is full of incredible promises, and those promises are spoken over us. And I have friends who have written some of those promises, right? Things like, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. Now, God has said that to you, but often we don't think about that in the morning. But what if you heard those things every morning and remind yourself, this is what God says over you. This is who you are, fearfully and wonderfully made. It would change how you see yourself for the rest of the day. So it's called affirmations. So you could write down spiritual affirmations, the promises in the Bible, and you can speak it over yourself. So vertical number 1 of a morning routine that you should activate is spiritually. Second thing, it doesn't matter what age you are, but we do have to activate ourselves physically, because we do have a body, and it is our obligation to treat our body well. Because whatever you say, if your body does not function because you've abused it, because you've neglected it, it is very hard to do ministry. It is very hard to be a witness if you do not honor the body that God has given you. And so I think it's super important that you do some level of exercise. For some people, it could be walking. For some people, it could be hitting the gym. Could be a little bit of badminton. Could be a full-on game of football. It could be anything. But you do have to think physically, what can you do? It could just be stretches. Wake up in the morning, spend 10 or 15 minutes just doing some stretches. Make sure that every part of your body is engaged. Healthy body, healthy mind. You know, where do all these things come from? It's like ancient wisdom that is passed down. And it is our fault if we don't listen to some of this ancient wisdom. Healthy body, healthy mind, right? So it's really important that you also physically engage. That's vertical number 2. Vertical number 3, emotionally engage, emotionally activate. This is a very neglected area, specifically, I think, in the Asian part of the world, because often we prioritize work, ambition, success over being emotionally connected. And I'm telling you, if you do not invest in being emotionally or increasing your emotional quotient, so you've heard about IQ, intellectual quotient, right? Indians in particular love focusing on that. But you also have to think about your emotional quotient or your emotional intelligence. It is something you can grow. It is a muscle that you can work. How do you deal with stress? How do you deal with anxiety? How do you deal with tension? How do you deal with difficult people? How do you deal with difficult situations? Do you know what helps you engage with all of that? Your emotional intelligence, not just your spiritual or your physical or your intellectual, but your emotional intelligence. How do you protect your heart from dangerous people? How do you protect your soul from attacks? Emotional. So connect emotionally. Now, for some people, that is writing. For some people, that is reading. For some people, that might be meditating, just sitting quietly for 10 minutes and just being still, focusing on breathing, focusing on anything but work, anything but your to-do list. It gives you a peace of mind. It gives you a calm before the onslaught of the day. So there are many, many ways, but I would suggest for sure that a third vertical to connect in the morning as part of your morning routine is emotionally. A fourth way is relationally. Now, I am so fortunate that during this pandemic, I wasn't alone in a little apartment. I got to spend most of the pandemic with my parents, which means that I am surrounded by the people I care about the most. From the time I wake up to the time I sleep, I am with my parents in the same house. And so relationally, I feel more connected this year than the last 2-3 years. Because the last 2-3 years, I haven't lived anywhere. I have spent 3 to 4 days in a hotel room in different cities around the world. I would fly about once or twice a week for about 3 years. And so I'm very fortunate during the pandemic, I could change that. And I was able to relationally connect with my amazing parents. We have great conversations. Yesterday, the conversation was about heaven and hell. And what else did we talk about? We talked about, punishment. And is hell a punishment? Is hell somewhere that people walk into? And, what is God's role in all of this? It's a great conversation. And it's relational as well. We talk about things that are important, projects that we're working on as a family. We talk about my sister all the way in Ecuador. We talk about our friends, but reminding ourselves that we're relational. If you're young, your only identity is not your job title. It's not what's on your business card. It's not your next promotion. It's who you are as a brother, as a sister, as an uncle, as an aunt, as a grandparent, as a grandmother. You have to be relational as well. That's the fourth. And finally, the fifth area for morning routine is creational. All right. So what can you do? Because it depends how you interpret the scripture on this, right? But in the scripture, what I see is that God created, but he created man with seed in him. And you see lots and lots of imagery in the Bible of seed being planted, seed being harvested. We see a lot of imagery around us also being co-creators. Now, this is not a theological seminary discussion that we're having here, but I firmly believe that we were also created to create. And so what are the gifts and talents? For example, I love playing the piano. I love doing puzzles. I already mentioned about writing and reading and all of these things. So what are the ways you can activate creation? Do you like knitting? Do you like painting? What are the things that God has given you to create? It could be cooking. Cooking is a form of creating, right? So what are ways that you can create in the morning? So now I want to see a little test, because I know especially Indian crowds love tests. I've given you 5 pillars of a good morning routine. The way that I do it in the morning, I touch one of these 5 every day, minimum. Most days I touch 3 out of 5. On the best days, I hit all 5 out of 5. But I'm not suggesting that you do all 5 all the time, every day, otherwise you won't be successful. I'm just saying, think broadly about how to have a great morning routine, because that's what time management is about starting well. Because if you get that fuel injection in the morning, you can keep running, right? Imagine if you're trying to go on a journey in your car and every 5 to 10 minutes you have to go to fuel up at a petrol station. That would not be a great journey, would it? But instead, you fuel it up at the start of the journey, and then you focus on the journey for the rest of the day. That's what a morning routine does. It fuels you at the start, so that then you can focus on the journey, not on stopping for breaks all the time, and not for stopping for breakdowns all the time. Because if you don't fuel up, you're going to need breaks. If you don't fuel up, you're going to suffer from breakdowns. Okay? So who can type in the chat section the 5 areas that I just shared for a morning routine? Bonus points if you get all 5, but even if you get some of the 5 and type it in, that will be good. I'm curious what hit you, because all of you gave me what you do spiritually. None of you gave me what you do outside of that as the first pieces of a morning routine. So I'm curious, what else has hit you? I'm going to have a quick tea break while I see what else you do in the morning. All right, so Paul Wright says family prayer time, a fast walk inside the home after giving up in gym because of the pandemic, answering to comments on YouTube channel, and then preparing thoughts to post. Yes, very good. So there you see something spiritual, you see something physical, and you see something relational, and you see something creational. He just hit 4 out of the 5 areas in the morning. Amazing, amazing. And I would say preparing thoughts is both emotional and creational. So technically probably hit all 5 right there. So what are the 5? And here's a clue. They all ended with ual. So spiritual. And then what were the other 5? Let's go. So Iris Paul says active spiritually, activate physically, walking inside the house, call up people to encourage them and advise. Medical. Amazing. Thank you so much, Iris Auntie, for writing that. That is excellent as a morning routine. What else do we have? Who else wants to share a little bit about their morning routine and how they activate 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of these areas? So again, the 5 areas that were just presented, we started with the spiritual, right? You got to start at the start. You got to start with the most important one. So we went spiritual, physical, emotional, relational, creational. Those were the 5 areas of a morning routine. Okay, now, I did say we got prayer, nature's call, prayer with a wife, trading 10 chapters of Bible. Nice. Okay, so I said that there were 4 areas for time management where routines are essential, where routines can make a huge difference for the rest of the day and for your life. So one is the morning routine. Now here's the second one that more and more people are learning about, but there isn't as much science and knowledge about it. And this is the evening routine. I know there are people in this group that go to bed and cannot sleep. I know there are people in this group that go to bed, sleep, and then wake up throughout the night. I know there are people in this group that go to sleep and wake up tired. I know there are people in this group that cannot get themselves to go to bed. They're distracted a lot. They're catching up on their to-do list. And I think how you end is almost as important as how you begin. And some of these things that I'm about to suggest can help you sleep better. Now, as I said, there's less science around this, but take note of some of these evening routines that help you slow down, unwind, and again, be intentional about sleep. Because rest is very important. And as Christians, I don't have to tell you what God himself, the mighty, powerful, not needing to fuel up, God did on day 7. I don't have to tell you about the Sabbath. I don't have to tell you about these things that you know are core to our faith. And yet, how well do we activate that? How much do we prioritize or value sleep? And so I'm going to give you a few things that you could do. George Paul, you win. Ding, 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 ding. You wrote spiritual, physical, emotional, relational, and creational. You got all 5 areas. Well done. Okay, so now for the evening routine. There are some things that will benefit. You have to try different combinations to see which ones will benefit you the most to help you sleep well. Now, I'm just going to tell you this. Yes, I'm going to boast about this. Okay? I've warned you. This is my boast. It doesn't matter if I'm sitting in economy class on plane or I'm sleeping in a bedroom in a 5-star hotel or a 7-star hotel in some of the most exotic countries in the world. It doesn't matter if I'm on a train or in a car. It doesn't matter what time zone I'm in, because sometimes I'll fly from Germany in the afternoon and go to California and it's still the afternoon. It doesn't matter how many hours I'm on stage. It doesn't matter what my day includes. I'm telling you this. I fall asleep usually in less than 60 seconds. Wherever. In fact, I cannot remember the last time that I was up for longer than a minute or 2 minutes. I cannot remember in years, even on the worst days, even on the days that I wished that I didn't have to be there. Even on the worst days, how I've been able to sleep with peace of mind, why I've been able to sleep fast, right? And I think it comes down to some of the evening routines. So tip number one, it's what I'm doing right now. If you have certain routines that trigger your body to say, this is getting closer to bedtime, Dan. This is getting closer to bedtime. It doesn't matter what weather I'm in. It doesn't matter what continent I'm in. It doesn't matter what physical space I'm in, because some people only can sleep in their own beds or on their own pillows. There are certain other things that you can do, like a cup of tea that tells your body, or your mind rather, not your body, but your mind to go, oh, this is something that Dan does before he goes to bed. So we must be getting closer to bed. It honestly doesn't matter if it's sunny or not outside. It doesn't even matter if I'm sitting up. It just tells my mind, oh, we're about to go to bed. That's one thing. Second, I wish you could see this. In fact, maybe I'll try to demonstrate it to you. But there's actually only one light in this room. And I intentionally start switching lights off at nighttime. Because if you have all the lights blazing, and the biggest crime here is the screens, because you've done the research on this, you know about that whole blue light stuff, right? It activates your brain waves. So if you've got screens facing you, if you've got lights on in the house, biologically, your body does not know it's nighttime, right? So it's important to start switching some of the lights off. It's important to start slowing down, maybe spending more time sitting on a couch, maybe spending more time reading, doing lower energy things. Because I know there are some people that will have their email open until 2 minutes before they go to bed. That will be multitasking, yelling at the kids, talking to their husband or wife, sending out emails, doing bank work, and they cannot sleep because they haven't told their body or their mind, it's okay to rest. It's okay to pause. Leave that for tomorrow, right? So how can you do all of that? Lie in bed and imagine that all of that disappears. Because guess what happens after you do all of that? You'll keep thinking about the email sent. You'll keep thinking about the bank work that hasn't been done or has been done. You'll keep thinking about what the next thing is. So it's important to maybe carve out 30 minutes or 60 minutes before you go to bed and start some nighttime routines, like a cup of tea, like switching off some lights, like switching off some devices, like maybe not going outside the house, and maybe trying to do some activities, some routines that tell your mind, oh, this is something that you only do when you go to bed, like reading your Bible, maybe journaling, think about the day, reflect on the day, maybe asking yourself some questions to help you process the day. Because if you don't do that when you're awake, you know what's going to happen? It's going to happen when you go to bed. So you're going to be lying in your bed thinking about your whole day because you didn't take the time to process your day. But if you half an hour before you go to bed, when you're sitting on your chair or your couch, just start taking some notes. High points, low points. Or you start planning the next day. Take out your calendar and start scoping it out. Just do some of these activities because then when you do that, when you lie in bed, you're not thinking about those things. Because otherwise, what happens? You're lying in bed and going, what do I need to do tomorrow? And you start going down the line, oh, I need to have this conversation. Oh, I need to work on that project. I need to do that. I need to do that. I need to do that. And that's all you're thinking about. Half an hour later, you're still wide awake because your brain's on fire. Your brain's rolling. And so it's really important an hour before, 30 minutes before, that you start clearing your mind of some of these things. And the way you clear your mind is by writing it out. Or even if you just make a note, if there's unfinished business, make a note, sticky note, put it on your desk, and tell your mind, I will handle this tomorrow. It will not be forgotten. So that when you go to bed, you're not thinking, oh, don't forget, you got to do this tomorrow. When you wake up tomorrow morning, you got to do this, right? So having a nighttime routine is the second vertical that I think is really important, because I do hear from a lot of people that they struggle with falling asleep. They struggle with peace of mind. They struggle with clarity as they go to bed. Their mind is not filled with nice thoughts or positive reflections. Their mind is filled with, what do I do tomorrow? What do I do tomorrow? What do I do tomorrow? What have I not done today? Or beating themselves up again. So think about some of these nighttime routines. I'm just curious. These are things that I do at night. All right. So I told you what the things I do in the morning, the 5 areas. I'm telling you what I do at night. I ask myself some questions. What was good? What was bad? And then I take out my Google Calendar and I will plan out the next day. I will write everything down. Who am I meeting? What do I have to get done? If I have some assignments or to-do tasks, I put it in the calendar. That way I don't have to think about it at night. It's dealt with. In the morning, I will have it planned for what I need to do. So then I do things like a cup of tea. Sometimes we play games at night with my parents, just to unwind, slow down a little bit. Because when you play a game, you're thinking only about the game. You're not thinking about other stuff and all of that. So what are some things that you do in the evening to unwind? Anyone have some good suggestions? Anything that you found helpful to kind of slow down, put things in perspective so you can sleep better? I'd love to know. And, so listening to classical music, wow, to hip hop and rap songs helps me with good sleep. That is such a good idea. Wow, that is so good. I might try that. Yeah. Sri Guru says instrumental music. Lydia says stargazing. These are brilliant. Music is so good. I had a friend in college that would listen to podcasts. So it was nice to switch off his own mind and switch on someone else's, if that makes sense. So he could detach from his own thinking and just think about whatever that person was talking about. And that really helped. Sip chamomile tea. Yes. Usha says end day with family prayer. Yes. So good. Music, TEDx talks by influencers like Dan Ram. That's very sweet. Thank you. Breathing exercises. Yes. These are great suggestions, everybody. So again, I'm not telling you things that you don't know. I'm just encouraging you to put them into practice, because the only reason that I can travel the world, run my business, keep expanding my business, the only reason that this year has been my most successful year, and again, the caveat, favor of God, grace of God, good community, good opportunities, all of that, I'm not taking away from that. But the reason I was able to sustain it, the reason I'm still smiling and standing at the end of the year, the reason I've been happy every day of this year, the reason that I have been positive every day of this year is because of things like this. These morning routines, these nighttime routines. Because if I don't sleep well, I'll be grumpy in the morning. I won't be out first thing in the morning playing badminton. If I don't have a good morning routine at 10 o'clock, when I get a call or when I have a project, I'll be grouchy. I'll be unfocused. I'll be distracted. So Christine says paint, scribble, doodle, draw, helps process emotions subconsciously. Yes. Dr. Maharasan says telling bedtime stories to my younger son. These are good. Reading books, amazing. All right, last two ones very quickly, and then I want questions, please. Let's make this interactive. So I'm going to tell you, because the last two are basically the same things, but done at different time lengths. All right, so we've done morning routine, a nighttime routine, and I'm suggesting you do these daily, a minimum of 10 to 15 minutes on each, preferably longer if you can, if you've got the luxury of time. Now, the next two things are the last things I want to share with you, and then let's take a few questions. So I'll keep checking the chat section over here so you can start dropping the questions in. But the last two things around time management is reflection. Reflection is so important. You cannot look forward without spending adequate time considering your past and your present. You cannot set goals for the future if you're not realistic about where you are today and where you've come from. So I think reflection is so important. And so the next two things, so I share two things that you do daily, a morning routine and a nighttime routine. I want to share two things that you do throughout the year. One quarterly and one annually. And there's a reason we're doing the time management conversation now at the end of the year, because I'm going to recommend that you do what the Ramamurthy family have been doing since the year that I was born. They both are the same thing, just done at different durations. One is quarterly, so every 3 to 4 months, and the other one is annually. You ask yourself some questions. You spend an hour, you spend 3 hours, you spend 8 hours, you spend a weekend. The more time you give into it, the better the results. But you spend some time reflecting, and you ask yourself questions like, what were the highs from this quarter or from this year? What were the moments that I really cherish, the moments that I celebrate? Because if you take stock of that, you appreciate what God's given you and the life that you have, and gratitude is so important in the form of perspective. But you also acknowledge the things in your life that give you joy, that give you energy, the things that you should pursue and chase after, maybe the next year or the next quarter. Second, you write down the lows of your life, the moments of struggle, the moments of strife, the moments of hurt, the moments of pain. Because again, when you take stock of that, you invite God into those situations, you invite counselors and coaches into those situations, but you also talk to yourself and you go, I realize that these relationships, I don't want to carry them forward. Or you realize these activities drain me. They don't empower me or elevate me. So I would say the two questions as a minimum that you should ask if you've only got 30 minutes or an hour is, what are the highs and what are the lows? And then you can ask yourself some interesting questions like, which were the relationships that were the most fulfilling? What were the activities that elevated me to the next level? What are the areas that I need to improve? What are the things I'm hopeful for? What are the things that I want to prayerfully consider for myself and for my community? How can I add value to my community, to my neighborhood, to my city? What are my gifts, my talents, my skills? Those are different areas. So these are some of the questions that you can ask. And we do this as a Ramamurthy family every New Year's Eve. This is our New Year's Eve tradition, is that we spend time asking these questions and sharing with each other, learning from each other, and then praying into it. So all four of us write this out. We talk to each other about it, and then we pray into it until we hear the fireworks, and we continue praying until we prayed for the last person. So that's what we do every New Year's Eve, and that's what I'd recommend if you don't have a New Year's Eve tradition, that maybe you would consider doing this. But I think taking stock is so important in an intentional way. So I also do a mini version of this every quarter, because if you only do it once a year, you might miss out on some very important learnings along the way. So those are the things that I wanted to share with you. 2 daily routines, morning and night, and 2 things that you should do interspersonally, quarterly and annually. Reflection, and the other one is amazing routines that you take on, right? All of this is about living life intentionally, because I would hate for you to turn 40, 60, 80, even 17 or 22 and go, wow, life flew past me. On the other hand, if you go, oh no, I'm waking up knowing my purpose. Oh no, I have got today under control. Oh no, I am so ready for tomorrow. Then every day feels a lot fuller. And on a spiritual level, I will also say this: you take less things for granted. You're more conscious of the gifts, the talents, the skills, the body, the people that God has given you in your life when you take stock, when you reflect on it, when you write it out, when you make time for these things. So all of this falls under time management, being intentional. The nice thing is, even though today we've spent about 45 minutes talking about these things are routines. They're not things you have to really bother your mind with once you get into it. I know when I wake up, I go to the gym or I play badminton, usually within 7 to 10 minutes of when I'm awake. I know when I come back, I have breakfast with my parents. I know after breakfast, I come down and listen to a sermon, or I read my Bible, or I listen to some music, and I'll connect spiritually. I don't have to reinvent the wheel every day. So today's conversation was to spark what you could do morning and nighttime, quarterly and annually so you can be more intentional, so you can be more in control of your life. Because in a world that's constantly changing, in a world where a pandemic disrupts everything, in a world where things, people, situations can change without our control, there is something that you can control: your time. There is something that you can control: your hours. It's really important that we use our time wisely. And that is what today's conversation about routines has been. So, last thing is, can someone put into the chat section Ephesians 5, verse 15 to 17? Because this is where I get some of my inspiration to live wisely, to live intentionally, comes from, is Ephesians 5, verses 15 to 17. If you can find that, put in the chat section. Alroy says, what about meditation prayer to improve your mindfulness too and observing your surroundings? Yes, that's correct. Vera, I know it's Ephesians 5, 15 to 17. I want to know what the words are. So don't put Ephesians 5 in. I want to see what the text is. What is the actual verse in there? So Alroy, I firmly believe in meditation and prayer. I think it's important, whether it's some breathing exercises, just sitting and being still. Before I go on stage, that's what I do. I don't rehearse my talking points. I don't think about the outfit I'm wearing. I don't think about all the people out there. I just focus on who I am as a child of God. I focus on my purpose. I just think about a word or a thought and I clear my mind and I'm still. So you can do breathing exercises, breathe in, breathe out. You can sit in certain poses. You can look outside the window and just appreciate nature if you've got a view of nature. So I absolutely support that. I think that's a good question. Thank you for bringing it up. And yes to it. Now, let's see. Vera says, be very careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise, making the most of every opportunity, because the days are evil. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is, right? Everything about this verse speaks and screams, be intentional. Don't be flippant. Don't lose track. Don't be ungrateful. Don't let go. Be intentional. Be wise. Every day, make the most of every opportunity. Today's an opportunity. Tomorrow's an opportunity. The next 2 hours is an opportunity. This 1 hour that you had is an opportunity. And I'm very grateful that you spent the last 1 hour with us. And I'm hoping that it sparks some thoughts about how you can be more intentional about your day and your life that you have. But that's what that verse is saying. Be careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. What is wise? Making the most of every opportunity. Because the days are evil. They will just fly by. Therefore, do not be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. Any other questions that are coming in? Also, if you look at the bottom of my Zoom call, you'll see it says Dan Ram at I am Dan Ram. And the reason I've got at I am Dan Ram is because I'm very active on social media about time management, a bunch of other things. So some of you may not be comfortable asking a question in a public group. I totally understand that. We have close to 100 people here in this group, so that can be quite intimidating. So you might want to ask me privately, and that's totally fine. I exist on social media for you, to help each of you, to support each of you, to send resources and all of that. So feel free. And it is a lot more conversational, more dialogue when it's one-on-one as opposed to a group here. So Parkinson's law, Paul Samuel says, Parkinson's law says that the work allotted expands to fill the time allotted. What would your advice be on how to determine how much time should be allotted to a task? Because being too liberal with targets affects efficacy and productivity, while too many things on the calendar could clutter the mind. How do we strike a good balance? Wow, what a brilliant question. Thank you for that. So just like I have pillars for a morning routine, I also have pillars for my day. First thing, the only thing I don't follow any apps or bosses or advisors. The only thing I follow is Google Calendar because I control what's on my calendar. And so just like I have pillars for my morning routine, I have pillars for my day. I make time for my work. I make time for people. I make time for sports. I make time for breaks, healthy breaks. I make time for teas and coffees. So everything goes on my calendar. And I've lived with myself long enough to know my swings. I know when I need a break, when I need to go for a walk, when I need to be outside, and when I've got enough energy to go. I know when I need to work on a big project that takes 2 hours, and when I need to work on quick stuff that takes 10 minutes. And so I think it's really important to allocate. So the question, how much time? Obviously, it depends on the task, just enough time to do the task well. But and this is where maybe my parents and I would disagree, I would say not enough time to do a task perfectly. That's controversial. We can have a conversation about that another time. But for me, getting work done is more important than getting done work done perfectly. Because often, and that's because I'm a procrastinator, sometimes I will sit and go, I need to wait till the weekend because then I can do it perfectly. I need to wait till I have all these resources because then I can do it perfectly. I need to wait till tomorrow because I'll be in a better mood tomorrow, so I'll do it perfectly. I use perfection as an excuse for procrastination when the real problem is procrastination. So I make enough time to get the job done, but it doesn't have to be done perfectly. That way I can keep doing things. That's also because of my motto, start now, start simple. I'm a big believer that you just got to do. Action is what creates opportunities. Not thinking about action, but actual action. So I allocate enough time to get work done, not to get work done perfectly. And that's how I figure out the time difference between the two. So it was a really good question. How much time should you give? How much time should you allocate? And I would say just enough time to get work done. But please, if you don't already, you can do anything from wake up in the morning and make a list of things I need to get done, or take it the next step and put it on the calendar. Because for me, if I don't mark time to get it done, how would it just magically get done? Like, it doesn't make sense, right? You tell yourself, okay, you need to get, so for example, the driving license. Just writing it down, how does that actually happen unless you actually write down 30 minutes to fill in the application, 1 hour to drive to the place for the test, and then spend another 1 hour maybe doing the test and then back. Like, unless you allocate that time to go there, how's that time just going to happen? At least for me, I don't just have time, I make time, right? And so for those of you, and I'm assuming I'm talking to people that are active and trying to achieve a lot and trying to make the most of every day, you will very quickly, if you haven't already arrived at it, not have time. No one has time. You make time for things. And so I put in the calendar to make time for things. Okay, procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God owes you another opportunity to do what you had time to do. That is a great quote, Krista. I've never heard that, and that is so good. Procrastination is the arrogant assumption that God owes you another opportunity to do what you had time to do. So I know we've reached the hour and we've been talking about time management. So I want to also honor the time that you've given to this. Like I said, I'm available online at I am Dan Ram on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Write to me on any of those platforms. I'll get back to you. Otherwise, drop me an email, team@iamdanram.com. I will respond to you. So I am here for you if I can help in any way. I'm also very fortunate to have been invited for future talks on some mega controversial topics. And so I cannot wait to spend more time with you guys in the future. But thank you for this first opportunity to share. And I do not take for granted that each of you gave me an hour of an hour that you won't get back. So thank you for giving your hour to me. And I hope that today was even a little bit beneficial to spark a thought about living life intentionally. And with that, I'll pass it back to Dahlia.
Yes. Yeah. So thank you, Dan, for that very inspiring talk. And I think not only the youth, but people of all ages, require time management. And I think these times we really need to actually manage our time and, be fruitful and efficient in our daily work, So I think there are a few more questions. It says, what is your advice to procrastinators? How can they overcome this?
SMART goals. If you haven't heard of it, SMART. So you make a goal specific, because often the reason we procrastinate is because the goal is too big, seems too unachievable. And so you make it very specific. M for measurable. So you have to measure what success looks like, what getting it done looks like. Because if you don't know when it's done, how will you know it's done? You'll just keep procrastinating on the next thing and the next thing. A is for achievable. It has to be something that you actually can do. It should not be something that's out of reach. R is for relevant. Your small specific goal has to be in line with the bigger goal. And T is for time bound. You have to put time on it. So, simple example, if I say that I want to give this talk. Or some of you going, I would like to give a talk. I would encourage you to give a talk. Give a talk is too big a goal. So specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound, a SMART goal is today, for example, between 4 and 4:30, in those 30 minutes, I am going to write down my 4 areas that I want to discuss: morning, evening, and I wrote down some quick thoughts on that. And I quickly made a plan for how I was going to start with the lion story and how I was going to roll into this and how I was going to end. So I just scribbled it down. It took me about 30 minutes to put all of that down, but that was specific. It was measurable because when you have your 4 points down, because I didn't say have 10 points or just think about how many sermons you can write down and about time management. No, I said just the points that I need for today's talk. Measurable. Was it achievable? Yes. 30 minutes is long enough to do that. Was it relevant? Yes, because scoping a talk out for a talk is important. And was it time bound? Yes, because I said 30 minutes. So that's how you don't procrastinate. Otherwise, I would have waited. Now, don't worry. Today at 4 o'clock was not the first time I thought about this talk. I give the talk about time management constantly, but that was just as an example. So what you do is you make it smart.
All right. There are a few more questions. I have tried many apps to control my time, but I couldn't. Need help from you. I just think to do it, but can't. I spend much time in YouTube watching WWE and cricket and WhatsApp chatting. Need suggestions from you to manage.
I love the honesty. Good. So again, I have shared this. Google Calendar is so important for me. I listen to Google Calendar. And so I have notifications for Google Calendar. So it pops up on my phone, it pops up on my computer saying this is what you need to do. Now, thankfully, I am an achiever. And so if there is a task that I can win, then I'll do it. And I treat the day like a game, right? So when I go to the gym, I don't just go to the gym. I have a plan for what I'm going to do in the gym, and I want to finish it. That's just the way I'm wired. Is like I feel bad if I stop halfway and walk back home. I'm like, oh, I didn't get it done. And so it's just kind of this like achiever mentality of it's on. Like I've got 10 things for the day. I almost challenge myself. Can I get all 10 things done? So the first thing is Google Calendar, any kind of app. You got to use something of that nature, but also some people prefer handwritten or sticky notes, but it has to be visible. It cannot be just in your head. You have to take it out of your head and write it out. Post-it notes on your screen, right? So that's my webcam over there. You could put it around your screen, Post-it notes, so it's visible. You can make a daily planner. I use Google Calendar, but there's lots of other apps. That's the first thing. Second thing, you got to switch off distractions, right? So you are shooting yourself in the foot if you say, I'm going to get things done while watching YouTube. Not going to happen unless it's a task that doesn't require a lot of focus or attention. Now, I like YouTube as well. I'm not demonizing or villainizing shows like Netflix or YouTube. I'm just saying find a time for it. So because I put in the calendar that I'm going to watch YouTube while doing my emails, because emails don't take that much attention from me, then if I am doing a big project and I'm thinking, oh, I wonder what my favorite YouTuber has just uploaded, or I want to watch some WWE, that thought, even though it comes to my head, I immediately go, good, Dan, you can do it at 6 o'clock because that's when you have set the time to do YouTube and emails, right? So make time for your distractions. Make time for some rest. Make some time for our hobbies. That's totally helpful. There is not a day that goes by where I don't go on YouTube. There's not a day that goes by where I don't play sports. There's not a day that goes by where I don't sit idle and be bored for a little bit, because I think all of those things are important. And so you have to schedule some of that boredom. But when that's not scheduled, get rid of the distractions, right? Don't open a second tab. Don't have something in your headphones. Just get the work done. Third thing, accountability. I'm on social media a lot. I share on Instagram stories daily, hourly sometimes. And so that accountability, because I will start off the morning saying, hey, everybody, hope you have a great day. And guess what? The rest of the day, people are checking if I've had a good day and if I've been productive. So I feel like I have to be productive for everybody, that I have to achieve for everybody. So you don't have to do it on social media, but you can ask a brother, a sister, a neighbor, a roommate, and just say, hey, guys, I need to get this done by 4 o'clock today. Will you check in on me? And just knowing that they're going to ask you will make you not procrastinate and get it done. Even if you start at 3:55, you'll get started on it, right? So you get either group accountability. Anyone who goes to the gym with a gym partner can sustain a gym culture longer than someone who goes to the gym by themselves, right? And it's the same thing with work. If you work with people, if a team depends on you, or if you just choose voluntarily like I do to tell people, I will get it done by today, right? So yesterday, my mom was working with my uncle on a new website, and I told her, I'll get it done by the end of the day. And because I knew that two people were waiting for it, I got it done by the end of the day. It was a Sunday. It was a weekend, but I had said out of my mouth, I'm going to get it done by today. So I got it done by today because I didn't want to disappoint two people, let alone one person. So those are some 3 quick tips on that.
Yeah, I think you've answered the next question as well. Do you just use Google Calendar, or do you use a handwritten planner as well? Do you categorize your tasks in quadrants, like important, urgent, important, not important?
Yeah.
I think
there are lots of
and
type in time management techniques or prioritization techniques online. There's a lot of amazing different ways that you can do it. So yes, I do categorize, but I also categorize by the amount of energy that things take, right? And so usually in the morning, I want to create momentum. So I do lots of small tasks so I have a sense of winning. If the first thing I do in the morning requires 4 hours, it's 4 hours before I win. And I like the feeling of getting things done, of checking things off. And so I always do lots of little tasks until about 11 o'clock. That's generally when the tea comes in. And then after that, I do a big task that goes from 11 to 1 or 11 to 12 and 12 to 1. So I'll do 2 big tasks that take a full hour. But I get that momentum going in the morning. So I've gone tick, 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 tick. So it's not so much in like urgent or not urgent. It's more like how much energy or attention does it take. Post lunch, I'm really chill. So then I can do a 1 hour or 2 hour bit. But in the morning, when I've got all this energy, I don't want to drain it by doing some long task that's going to take a whole day. So that's how I categorize, is like the amount of energy that's required. And then I know that after the gym, I have a lot of energy. Like right now, I worked out and I've got tons of energy, right? And so I put things that require energy, like these kind of talks. I would not give this talk at 2 o'clock in the afternoon because that's generally when I'm really relaxed. I'd be sitting on a chair and I'll be just relaxed talking to you. So I figure out when's the best time to optimize for different things based on how much energy it's going to take.
One more question. If I read a book to sleep, then my mind is processing about what I read. Would it not defeat the purpose of the evening routine?
Sure. And that's okay. So make some time to process. That's totally fine. That's a good thing that you are thinking about what you're reading. I mean, the reality is anything that you do, you should be processing. It's just about making that also time bound, right? And also how much can your mind actually process? Because if all you do is read a book for 30 minutes and then spend 5 or 10 minutes processing it, that's better than the alternative, which is having your email tab open, having Netflix playing, having your family talking to you, thinking about the next day, setting up your Google Calendar, and then trying to go to bed and process all of that in your bed, right? So focusing on one task, just reading, not reading and listening to a podcast, or reading and coloring and playing a family game, but just reading and just doing that one task for 30 minutes and processing that one thing and then sleeping, generally you're going to be able to sleep faster than if you try to do all of it and then lay in bed and then magically like just hope that your mind will switch off, because it won't.
Okay. And since being accountable to a partner to how I spend my time, is it a good idea?
Being accountable to a partner? Yes. That's exactly what I'm suggesting, unless I misunderstood the question.
No, I think that's what it says. Being accountable to a partner to how I spend my time. Is it a good idea? I guess that's...
Absolutely. You know, every Monday, I share on Instagram my 3G Mondays: God, gym, and goals. These are 3 things that give me energy. So the fact that I share it every Monday makes me accountable doing it every Monday, because I have to share on Instagram that I did it. The fact that I work out every day, I have a phrase that says fitness is necessary for greatness. And so because I tell all the followers that I work out every day, I feel the pressure to work out every day. So accountability is so important. I don't always wake up thinking I want to go work out. But because I know people are waiting to see, did Dan work out? Because it inspires them to work out as well, I do it.
I think that's about it. Questions. I think everyone else can email Dan with their questions as he's proposed. So thank you once again, Dan, for this really amazing and inspirational talk. And I'd request Brother Paul Raj to finish this session with a prayer.
Yeah, sure. Lord, we thank you for the wonderful time that you gave us this evening to be with Dan. And Lord, listen to him as to how to manage our time, Lord. Thank you for teaching us as to how to activate ourselves spiritually, attending to our fitness needs, engaging to our emotional intelligence on day-to-day basis, and also precautions to be taken on mobile phones and sleeping habits, quarterly, annually, how to spend time. Thank you for the motivation that we all got this evening, Lord. We praise you for Danny's work. Thank you for the Q&A session that we had. Thank you for the answers. Thank you for talking to us. Help us to manage our time on a daily basis, weekly basis, and quarterly and annual basis, as we heard from your servant. Bless his motivational speeches throughout the world. Lord, we pray for his travels, pray for his media, Lord, conversations. Bless his ministry. Thank you for the people who heard us, heard him. Thank you for the time. We praise you for everything. We ask all these Christ's name.
Excellent. Thank you all for joining. And if I can be of service in any way, please do reach out. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and hopefully catch you at the next talk.
Thank you, Dan. Thank you so much.